I couldn't believe it the first time I noticed my water tank levels dropping overnight. At first, I figured it had to be a leak, or maybe I just used more water than usual. But when it happened again and again, I knew something wasn't right. That's when I decided to check my outdoor camera footage, and what I found left me speechless. There she was, my neighbor, Karen, from the HOA board, sneaking into my yard at night, with a hose and a bucket like it was her personal faucet. Now, Karen had always been. A lot. She's the type who sends angry emails if your grass is half an inch too tall, or if your trash bins are out 10 minutes early. But this, stealing water, from someone she supposedly manages in the neighborhood, that was next level. I started keeping track, logging every time she showed up, thinking it was just a weird obsession with my yard. But here's the twist. What started as just one nosy neighbor turned out to be something way bigger. Karen wasn't just draining my tank. She was tapping into the shared water line that fed into multiple homes on our block. That meant every time she filled her pool or washed her car, the entire neighborhood was footing the bill. I knew I had to expose this. But calling her out wasn't going to be easy, especially with the HOA behind her. What happened next? Let's just say, things got real messy. So here's where it started to get weird. After seeing Karen on the footage, I figured I had enough to confront her quietly. I mean, who wants to blow up things with a neighbor, right? Especially one with pull in the HOA. But when I casually brought up the water usage to her, just to see how she'd react, she didn't even flinch. She acted like she had no clue what I was talking about, smiled, changed the subject, and then, a few days later, I got a warning notice from the HOA. About my water tank placement. Coincidence? I didn't think so. That's when I started digging. I talked to a couple of other neighbors, just casual conversation at first, and it turns out I wasn't the only one noticing odd spikes in water bills. One guy mentioned his sprinklers running slower than usual. Another said his pressure was super low some mornings. No one really thought much of it until I shared my footage. Their faces said it all. This wasn't just a one-off thing. And the craziest part, Karen had access to the maintenance keys. She claimed it was part of her duties as an HOA board member. That gave her access to shared systems, including the community's backup water reserve, which none of us even knew existed until all this started coming to light. Still, no one wanted to say anything officially. People were scared of retaliation. I didn't blame them. Karen had a reputation, and now I was on her radar. After that HOA notice, I knew Karen wasn't just some nosy neighbor with boundary issues. She was using her position to cover her tracks. The more I looked into it, the more things didn't add up. For starters, how had no one else caught on? Then I remembered, Karen ran the HOA meetings, controlled the agenda, and had access to the neighborhood email list. If someone complained, she could bury it before it even reached the rest of the board. She wasn't just stealing water. She was manipulating the system to make sure no one could stop her. Around this time, I started getting anonymous notes in my mailbox. No return address, just typed messages warning me to drop it. One even said, "You don't know what you're getting into." At first, I thought it was just Karen trying to scare me off, but the wording didn't sound like her. That's when I started thinking, maybe she wasn't acting alone. Maybe someone else in the HOA was helping her. Maybe more than one person. Meanwhile, the neighborhood started splitting. Some people were fed up with the sudden rule changes and weird billing issues. Others were too afraid to speak out, afraid of getting fined, written up, or worse, targeted like me. I even overheard one neighbor say they saw Karen connecting a hose to a locked utility panel late at night. But when I asked them to speak up, they got quiet real fast. I kept recording everything, but the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a petty neighbor feud. This was something bigger, and it was only getting darker. I decided it was time to take things further. Quietly collecting evidence wasn't enough anymore. Karen was getting bolder. One night, just after midnight, my motion sensor camera caught her again. But this time, she wasn't alone. There were two other people with her. One of them looked like the HOA treasurer. They had flashlights, tools, and were messing with the main access point to the neighborhood's underground water system. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just theft. It was a full-on operation. I couldn't sleep after that. Every little noise outside made me jump. I started backing up my footage, storing it on multiple drives in case something happened to one. I even considered calling the city, but I wasn't sure how deep this went. What if someone at the municipal level was in on it too? I know that sounds paranoid, but once you see people in your own community sneaking around at night, draining resources everyone pays for, it messes with your head. Then during the next HOA meeting, one that Karen conveniently announced only 2 hours in advance, I showed up, phone in hand, ready to speak. The room went dead silent when I walked in. Karen gave me that fake tight-lipped smile and asked if I had any community concerns. I could feel everyone watching, waiting to see what I'd do. But before I could say a word, someone pulled the fire alarm, and the meeting was shut down. That's when I knew I had hit a nerve. Something big was being hidden, and someone was willing to go to extreme lengths to keep it that way. After the fire alarm forced everyone out of the meeting, I stayed behind in the parking lot, trying to calm my nerves. I watched Karen rush off with the treasurer, whispering, clearly shaken. That wasn't just a coincidence. They had planned to shut me down before I could speak. But what happened next threw everything sideways. Later that night, I got a message from a blocked number. It wasn't a threat, it was a video. Grainy footage, probably from an old security camera, showing Karen meeting with someone I never expected. The neighborhood's property manager. The same guy we all thought was barely involved, who rarely showed up to HOA meetings or replied to emails. Turns out he was the one who signed off on water maintenance budgets that had quietly doubled over the past few months with no explanation. I started to put the pieces together. Karen wasn't just stealing water. She and her little group had figured out how to bill the entire block for infrastructure upgrades, while secretly rerouting the water supply for personal use. Think extra irrigation for private gardens, constantly filled pools, maybe even supply for some off-the-books rental properties. And that mystery reserve tank. It was a backup supply meant for emergencies, now half empty, with no record of where it went. The stakes had just gone from frustrating to dangerous. I wasn't just exposing one neighbor's shady behavior anymore. I was uncovering a full-blown water scam that could affect every homeowner on the block. And now I wasn't sure who I could trust. I knew I couldn't take them down alone. So I reached out to a local investigative reporter who specialized in community corruption, quietly, anonymously at first. I handed over everything: the footage of Karen and her crew, the altered water bills, the video from the mystery center. Within a week, the reporter showed up at the next HOA meeting, this time with a camera crew and a microphone. Karen tried to shut it down, said it was private property, HOA members only. But once the reporter mentioned they had evidence of utility fraud, the room turned cold. Fast. That's when neighbors started speaking up. One by one, people shared their own stories, strange charges, denied repair requests, even threats when they questioned anything. The property manager, who was supposed to be out of town, just happened to show up mid-meeting, only to be greeted by a city official with a subpoena in hand. The scam had gone far enough to trigger a full investigation. Karen tried to play innocent, said she was just following protocol, but once the reporter aired the video of her at the utility panel, her voice clearly on tape saying, "No one's going to trace this," it was over. Or so I thought. The final twist. Turns out the mystery footage didn't come from a neighbor. It came from Karen's own husband. He'd been recording her for months, worried she'd get caught and drag him down too. He handed over the video the night before I got it. She had no idea. Justice was served, but not how I expected. After the dust settled, the HOA board was dissolved, and a new election was held with actual transparency. Karen resigned before charges were officially filed, but she and the treasurer both faced legal action for utility tampering and fraud. The property manager quietly disappeared, his company replaced within weeks. Turns out he'd been involved in similar shady deals in other neighborhoods, and this one finally caught up to him. As for Karen's husband, I never saw him again, but part of me hopes he found peace after exposing everything. The city stepped in to inspect the damaged water lines and confirmed the neighborhood's backup system had been nearly drained. It took weeks to fix, but the community came together in a way I'd never seen before. Neighbors who barely spoke before were suddenly sharing updates, helping each other with yard work, even organizing meetings without fear.